creation, after all, is a reshuffling of matter and energy. And somewhere along the way, a new person, like you or me, comes into being. I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrish.com or on Instagram at heathergrish. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Hey you. I know you. You don't know how to trust anyone any longer, and you don't know who to trust. Authorities, people you've respected, family members, even good friends seem to have gone insane. You can't relate any longer. You're just not buying it. Many of us prefer what we know, even if it's suboptimal. We may sit and obsess, ruminate, get frustrated, or worry in the interim. We'll take it until we reach a breaking point that pushes us in a different direction. Others see the opportunity for change as enlivening, and they'll actually actively seek it out. So the same is true whether we are grasping for the past and trying to hold on to it, or if we're actively trying to get toward the future. We never know what the future holds. So how do we sit with that? Today, let us transcend thinking. Today, it's just you and me, and I'm going to take you on a journey of your senses. First, I want to introduce you to the concept of interoception and the concept of exteroception. And then I want to talk about some of the sensorial awareness tools available in the Ayurvedic understanding of the mind, body, and spirit. Wouldn't you love it if you could just get your thoughts to stop? Well, let's try giving your awareness something better to focus on. Starting with interoception, it's essentially your ability to detect the feelings, the sensations on the inside space of your body. Interoception. So if any of you are yogis and you're familiar with the term pratyahara, or the drawing of the senses inward, it's essentially taking the flashlight of awareness and bringing it into the internal space of your body. So an example of how to find that would be if we all just sit here right now and just feel our bodies, and we can direct the attention to like a specific part of the body. So try the belly. Just feel what's going on in the belly. Just notice any sensations there. Sense of fullness or emptiness, sense of density, sense of movement, temperature. And then bring that awareness out to a little bit more of the periphery, so the sides of the belly and the back. And then out to the periphery of the whole body. Out to the periphery, but still keeping the awareness in the inside space of the body. So feeling the inside space of the legs and the inside space of the feet, inside space of the arms, inside space of the hands, and also the inside the neck, chest, and head area. So that's the awareness of the inside space of the body. And so if you've ever done anything like yoga nidra, you may know that that is one of the practices that cultivates that interoception. The other type of ception that we're going to cover today is the exteroception. And so this is anything that comes in through the senses from the outside of the body. So it's the way that we feel and sense the space around us. So our sight and smell, taste, and all of stimuli that are outside of our bodies that would come in through exteroception. So it's taking the flashlight outside of the body and having the awareness on the outside of the body. What's really interesting about interoception and exteroception, so this idea that you could have the flashlight inside the body and the flashlight outside the body, is that everything's coming through your body anyway. So even when you have exteroception, it's still coming through your body. So you can't ever really do away with interoception while you have a human body. And so knowing that and wanting this sense of fullness and sense of full awareness, sometimes the body's ability to read the environment can actually become hindered. The body's ability to read the environment can become hindered by several things, can become hindered by thoughts, just distraction of the thoughts distracting away from body sensation. Another way that the body can sort of get in the way is if there's, say, an injury of some sort or a blockage of some sort in the body that is cutting off awareness to a certain part of the body or is affecting the awareness of a certain part of the body. Inflammation, plaques, scar tissue, things like that can affect our internal experience of our body. And when our internal experience of our bodies is altered, well, that's going to alter the way we see the world. So one of the reasons why it's so important to have a healthy body is because if our bodies have anything imbalanced inside, we cannot trust that we're perceiving the world accurately. Maybe that explains why people are so crazy right now. We're going to look at how healthy people are these days. I think we all know that there's a lot of imbalance going on. I think we all know, based on the level of prescription drug uses, the rates of diabetes, the rates of obesity, and all these chronic lifestyle conditions that we have, stress, use of medication for various mental conditions. So I want to read a little bit from my book today. And I know some of you really don't care about fertility, and I do have a couple chapters in the book that are beneficial to read, even if you're not trying to get pregnant. So I really wanted this book to reach people who knew nothing about Ayurveda, noticing quickly when the body is in a state of health versus a state of imbalance can make all the difference in trying to reverse disease processes. However, if you're like most people, you pay attention to your work, your friends, your family, the news, or your thoughts more than you do your own body. And that was me when I was in my 30s, until I realized I've been dragging this body around with me my whole life and knew very little about how it worked. We aren't given a manual on how our bodies work when we are born. Even trained medical professionals don't always fully integrate their learning on the body because intellectual knowledge, helping other people, and our own embodiment are completely different things. When I started studying my own body, I noticed how complex it was, how so much is going on all the time in its nooks and crannies. I felt overwhelmed by how much there was to learn, and it seemed it would take forever to try to understand it. I wondered, is there a way to learn about health that is instead really simple and won't feel daunting to tackle? Ayurveda was my answer. Ayurveda gives insight into the very beginnings of disease by studying seemingly benign symptoms that most people simply discount because they oftentimes can take some over-the-counter medicine for them. But they're a big deal if they persist. All disease conditions, major or minor, have their roots in the small health issues that just start as little, tiny, almost imperceptible things. To prevent reverse disease, you want to catch it as early as possible because it's more and more difficult to address as time goes on. The good news, which I'll explain later, is that imbalance follows a very specific pattern, so if you pay attention, you'll be able to detect and rebalance issues. My goal is to introduce you to a few helpful concepts from Ayurvedic medicine so that you can discover how you can be your healthiest self. A healthy person is healthy in body, mind, and senses. We factor in what enters the body and how it is processed, utilized, and ultimately excreted. We evaluate actual food intake and anything else that comes in contact with the sense organs, such as sound, light, smells, and so on. Anything perceived by the senses is food. We cannot deny that the mind and body are interconnected. When we feel physical pain, there are often mental symptoms that accompany this pain. When we feel stress, anxiety, or sadness, we feel physical symptoms too, because feelings trigger energy and fluids to travel through the body and can even cause muscle contractions or spasms. A blood test can give us a view of how the various organs of the body are functioning in a given moment of time, but what a blood test cannot do is tell us how we feel, how hungry we are, or what thoughts we have. A blood test cannot teach us about the actual disease processes behind a snapshot in time. Ayurveda factors in all these things because how we think, feel, and behave is certainly connected with how the body is operating. Health is really about ensuring that energy and fluids are flowing properly. The physical flow depends on the mental and emotional flow, and vice versa. We must give importance to mental states, emotions, and the physical condition of the body equally. So most people don't think too much about their health unless they've identified some sort of problem or discomfort in themselves. We also tend to think about our own health when a family member has a medical issue. We start to wonder if we're going to suffer the same fate due to genes or a similar diet or a lifestyle that we have in common. Learning how to read the body on a day-to-day basis and ultimately moment to moment will actually help prevent health issues, even though there may be some that we're predisposed to, because the cause of our imbalances can be determined sooner. So this is why it's important to observe the condition of our physical attributes and our physiological functioning on a regular basis, including looking at your body form and composition, checking out your skin, including your scalp, looking at your tongue in the mirror, looking at your eyes and the redness of them, any odd little spots on them, areas around the eyes, the energy of the eyes, the dilation of the eyes, checking out your nails and the, quality of your nails, listening to your voice and feeling how it feels to express your voice, checking out your pee, your urine in the toilet, checking out your poo, your feces. So look at what goes on in the bathroom. Checking out your bodily excretions, including your reproductive organ secretions, right? So for men, you've got your semen, and for women, you've got different types of fluids coming out of you. So the physical forms change according to the volume, frequency, and type of energy they receive. All right, now we're going to go into the 5 elements. There's 5 elements in Ayurveda, and it's a little bit different than Chinese medicine. If you're familiar with Chinese medicine, they have, elements like metal and wood. What is unique about Ayurveda is that Ayurveda has the space as an element, so space or ether as an element. And I find that very interesting because it's quite intangible. And just think about it, or just even take your awareness to the space around you right now. You can't really put your finger on space, can you? You could see what's in the space. You can find the walls of the space. You can see what's inside the space. You might even see little, dust particles flowing through the air if you get the light catching around you in a very specific way. But you're not going to see space, and yet it's a thing in Ayurveda. It's an element. It's called Akasha. It's the first of the 5 elements Ayurveda uses to describe the matter we see in our bodies, in food, and in nature around us. Space provides a container for everything else, and even though we cannot see it, we know it's there because we can see what's in it. Our planet, the stars, and the sun are all in space. We can hear because sound travels through space. The body is essentially a collection of different types of channels. So arteries, veins, organs, digestive tract, reproductive tract, bones, and so forth. And in each channel, there's a space for something to happen inside it. And space exists in the junction points and synapses between the neurons and in the joints. With too little space, congestion or inflammation happens. And with too much, we can dry out or communications can get dropped. Adequate space is key to transmission of information, nutrients, and energy. When a space suddenly opens up, a vacuum of receptivity is created. When a space is closed, transmission is blocked. You can observe nature and see the same phenomena playing out in your own body. Sometimes just looking at a flower for a moment will tell you everything you need to know about how you feel right now. It may even help you solve a problem you've been working on. The space around us teaches us what is within us. And this is because the atoms that make up the stars, the plants, and the ocean are the same atoms we have in our bodies. Creation, after all, is a reshuffling of matter and energy. And somewhere along the way, a new person, like you or me, comes into being. So with that first element of space, there is so much possibility that can happen. The other elements that we won't go into depth on today are air, fire, water, and earth. And I think they probably all seem a little bit self-explanatory. What I want to go over with you is how to balance your senses, or how to balance your body through kind of a strategic or intentional play of sensory input. So intentionally using the materials that you have available to you, or any stimulation that you have available to you, to create an effect in your body. So kind of going with this idea that there are many things that can have a therapeutic effect on your body. So you don't necessarily need prescription drugs to change your internal state. There are also other things that you can do and invoke to change your internal state. And if we look at the 5 senses of the body, there are ways to affect the balance of the inside of the body. So the, let's say, quickness or slowness inside the body, the heat or coolness inside the body, the subtlety or the grossness of the body, the mobile versus static aspects of the body, or the sharp versus dull aspects of the body. All these different sort of qualities that we can have inside. Because when we think about being stressed or overwhelmed or anything like that, usually it has to do with there's some specific quality that we have an excess of, or some specific quality that we have too little of. So I have too much work, okay? There's a lack of space. There's too much matter there, maybe too much earth, or maybe too much fire. So we have to be able to identify not just that we're stressed. That's a very vague term that is not helpful, other than just saying that things are not okay. If we want to really understand what's going on and what we actually need in order to achieve a state of balance or homeostasis again, we have to get a little bit more granular with it. So let's talk about ears first. We've got our ears, and we hear with our ears, and we can hear music, we can hear voices, we can hear birds outside, we can hear water annoyingly dripping in the bathroom. So hearing and sounds, they will have a pleasurable or painful effect on the body, or a comfortable or uncomfortable effect on the body. So, for example, say you're feeling very rushed. Things are moving too fast, and you want to slow it down. Things just feel too fast. Well, then why not put on some slow music? And the opposite could be true. So say things feel like they're moving really slowly. Maybe you feel sluggish. you could put on some fast music. I think that's a really easy example, right, of how we're going to change the internal state, because playing music is something that we all do. So what about if we're feeling ungrounded, like we have this sense of lightness, like we're kind of floating or not on the ground? So if we want to reduce that sense of lightness, can come with anxiety sometimes, we might play music that has deeper tones. And so those deeper tones might be felt more low and deep in the body and stimulate this sort of lower chakras of the body. And say you're dealing with some dry skin, so your body is dry or other parts of you are dry. Why not play water sounds? What would water sounds do to the body sensations? So if we go from hearing, we might go to feeling with the skin. You know, the skin is such an amazing organ because it's so intelligent, and it's the highly overlooked organ of the body. And if it's rough, say that rough skin, and maybe you feel like people are being rough with you, or maybe you feel like you're being rough, maybe you need to kind of apply some smooth substances to your skin. And so you can reduce some of that roughness with smoothness, like a nice lotion or an oil or a silky fabric. And, you know, say you're feeling cold, like I'm cold all the time, take a hot bath. And so that's going to change that state on the skin of the body. And what if you feel things are feeling very sharp, you know, as opposed to dull, sharp, and like something that cuts like a knife, and something that's very direct and blunt, you know, that's that sharpness. So in order to reduce sharpness, you know, that's another way to think about putting some soft fabrics on the body. All right, so we did the ears. We went with feeling on the skin. So next we're going to go to the eyes. So we see out of our eyes. We're going to say we have so much mobility going on in our lives. We've been traveling a lot, we've been moving around, or we've been working on a lot of different projects or talking to many different people. Our attention's been going all over the place. So say we have too much mobility, whether it's physical or mental. We could stare at a fixed object, maybe like a lit candle, just stare at it. Say we're hot, things are burning. It's just, you know, it's a hot summer, or we're just feeling really intense or starting to get angry about something. We can choose colors that are more of a pastel nature, which have a softness to them, soft and light and cool. So say something like a pastel green or blue, something cool like that. And another way to play through the eyes is, you know, if you have some dryness there in the eyes and you want to directly affect the eyes, you could actually take some eye drops and add some eye drops. You know, there's some really nice rose eye drops that I like to give to my clients that have dry, inflamed eyes. Rose water eye drops are amazing. Okay, so we did hearing with the ears, feeling with the skin and the body, seeing with the eyes, and next we go to tasting with the tongue. Right away, do you feel your mouth water? So if you want to taste with the tongue and affect the body internally, so say you have density, excess density going on in the body, you feel heavy and dense. Well, density is a thickness, right? It doesn't have much space in it. So you might eat foods that are porous or full of air that might add to the reduction of the density of the body. So porous or full of air, like, you know, popcorn or something like that. Say there's some cloudiness going on and fogginess in the mind, cloudiness somehow in the humors of the body that you can see from the excretions of the body, then maybe it's time to eat some clear foods that you would taste with your tongue. And what about with tasting with your tongue if you're feeling heavy? So if you're feeling heavy, you could try eating lighter or fasting. So stop eating so much food, or fast, eat a little less frequently. So we've done hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting and we're going to smelling. So we smell with our nose. If we're going to say we want to reduce wetness, here's an example. If you want to reduce wetness, then you could sniff drying scents like clove and camphor. So they have a drying effect on the body, or like different kinds of pepper, though you probably will sneeze if you do that. But then you'll be dry afterwards because you'll probably sneeze a bunch of boogers out. And if you smell with your nose and you want to reduce or heat or inflammation in your body, you could sniff cooling scents like rose and jasmine. It's kind of sweet, cooling scents. And what if you want to reduce subtlety? So like you're not able to express yourself in a way that people are really feeling the impact of what you're trying to say. So you're feeling like there's this subtle quality to you. You could smell anything strong, anything very strong, and that will encourage that grossness, that impact in you, as opposed to that subtlety, the subtle aspect. So playing with the senses is actually how we will artfully balance the body and the mind in Ayurveda. And it's how we make choices to bring in slightly different sensory input. So I find in these moments where the mind is active, unsure, not knowing who to trust, that it's always just better to bring the attention back into the body and focus on what is right in front of you. Focus on what is right in front of you. We really can't know what's going on with other people anyway. I mean, unless they tell us. So most of the world is fiction. Most of the world is fiction. So it just makes way more sense to focus on the wisdom of your own body. Thanks for joining me today. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.